I'm sorry. It's been way too long. I started this YouTube channel, honestly, I can't even remember, probably close to 10 plus years ago. And at the time, I had every intention to grow this channel to be the place where I would post my music. And then eventually I transitioned over to posting music tutorials and feature demos for DistroKid. I started talking about my journey as an artist and even started a podcast called the Musicpreneur Podcast. And then I fell off. So what happened? Well, I'm going to keep it pretty raw and unedited so we can have this conversation. Back in 2000, roughly 2020, I was going through a bit of a crisis, spiritual, economic, financial, career-wise. And I had a breakthrough. I knew that I needed to make more money. I needed to grow my career. My music was doing okay, even though I've been kind of in the top 10th percentile of all artists. I lost that flair and that passion that I once had. Honestly, part of it was because I started making music when I was 14 or 15 and went through this spiritual conversion. Truthfully, I had gone to the extreme of using my music to really evangelize the message of the gospel. And I still believe in it, for the record. But internally, I was dealing with a lot of, well, some would say demons, but really it was a lot of unclosed loops that had happened because of some complex trauma, to be honest with you. I needed to really dive deep into trauma therapy, and I never really understood that that was a need for me. But it was affecting my faith life. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting a lot. And it started to spread kind of like a cancer to every other area of my life. And so when I pivoted my music brand in 2016 to make music, that was a desperate attempt to try to make something happen when it didn't need to happen, which was making music for the world and getting popular and getting big enough to land a record deal. And so in 2019, when I decided to lay that dream down, it was in part because I'd grown so dissonant internally from my original mission with music that I knew I could either go one way, which was basically, for lack of a better term, sell my soul to the industry. And I was definitely going down that path. Or I could just stop altogether and focus on something more tangible and more financially stable for the sake of my wife and my then son. Now I have 3 children. And so it was the responsible thing to do to basically just grow up and learn from my missteps. But I wanted to document that journey. And so I started this podcast called the Musicpreneur Podcast on a different channel. And that podcast started taking a life of its own. I really began to enjoy reminiscing on the good parts of music creation, of being an independent artist, of learning how to navigate the wild, wild west that is online business as a music creator. Because look, at the end of the day, we're online entrepreneurs. And I took a lot of those skills and had been able to grow a mini boutique media and marketing business called NTS Media. See my logo up there. And that started to take a life of its own as well. And in between building a personal brand for my music and growing a YouTube channel and working with clients, I realized that I was getting pulled further and further away from music, and I kind of felt like an imposter. In fact, to be 100% honest with you, I've met some incredible musicians, producers, vocalists, really talented people. And I realized that my why for music had stemmed from an insecurity that I had as a child. I was never the smartest. I was okay. I mean, I was okay. I was a nerd. I definitely got straight A's in middle school, but I was not the most popular kid in class. I wasn't the most athletic. I was kind of an outcast in the sense of, being an immigrant in this country and navigating the ropes of coming here and living in a predominantly wealthy area where we were not by any stretch of the imagination there were just a lot of insecurities within me. And when I used music basically try to make this message known, I realized that it also gave me a certain sense of validation that I didn't have as a child. And so I knew that a lot of it stemmed from this insecurity and seeking external validation. And the motive for pursuing music was really just a motive for seeking validation. And it wasn't rooted in what I mentioned earlier, which was like true, authentic talent. Now, some people will say they like my music and I appreciate that, or they've gotten they've grown to be inspired by the words that I've said. And again, don't undermine that. And I appreciate the fact that that's how maybe God has used my music. But I feel like the motive for continuing to pursue music became more about myself than it did about others. And so I knew that A, I wasn't talented enough to keep going. And then B, when I had these conversations from a musicpreneur standpoint, I wasn't really doing that. And the peak of my success came after I laid the music dream down. In fact, Limits the Sky, which is a song that I recorded back in 2019 with X Terrell and Joshua Cruz, was the biggest success in terms of music accolades that I've ever had. It's been streamed or viewed over 30 million times. It got picked up by Skims and Maserati and MLS and a bunch of sports leagues, NBA, on TikTok. It's been used for commercial uses on campaigns, and we never even got a chance to perform that song. We didn't get a chance to do a music video for it. And it's just funny because I didn't think that that would be my biggest hit, but I only played a small part in it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I didn't really feel like an authentic musicpreneur, even though I was talking about it. What I did realize too was that I had a knack for communication and podcasting and doing that for other people. And so what I learned in the process of creating my own podcast and creating my own system to produce high quality content was something that I could sell as a service. And I knew that at the time I had the potential of making it a business apart from just the media and marketing stuff that I had. So I hired a career coach to grow my full-time career, but I also hired a business coach to help me figure out how to transition out of my corporate job potentially or build a good business that could generate some decent revenue and grow my income substantially. I had a financial need, still do, growing family, 9 times out of 10, kind of relying on my income alone. And so I knew that I had to step it up as a man and as a provider. And I tried many different ways. Like I really tried to get different jobs and grow in my career, and it just didn't seem to be enough. And when I started the podcast machine, which was basically my productized video first podcast as a service, I landed some pretty good clients and I was able to grow my income substantially. And so you may say like, okay, well, you kind of did sell yourself out, and maybe I did, but not in the sense of like selling my soul, right? Like I didn't compromise my morals or beliefs or values to try to sell the service, where I felt like with music, it started to become more of that. And I haven't done the best job at really being good about that, right? So anyway, I'm making this video because I haven't posted on this channel in a long time. I started the Musicpreneur podcast and that saw some success. I appreciated the partnership that I had with DistroKid, but I want to show you what I've been up to for the last couple of months, year and a half. And so I started a brand new channel, and it's small. It's new. In fact, I actually had the Musicpreneur podcast on there before, so some of you may already be subscribed to that channel. I know there are a lot of people on here that follow me that only speak in Spanish, y yo también, but the content that I'm making is predominantly in English for English audiences, and I may eventually make some Spanish content on there. But it's documenting kind of how I've been able to help clients start and generate profitable podcasts, or helping them with their business with a podcast content system. And I found better success with that than I did with music. And as I'm growing as a man, as a provider, husband, father, that has really helped me to cement my place in the world and create value rather than extract, and help other people rather than take away, and not be at the forefront seeking validation from an audience, just building something great for other people. And so if you're interested in that type of content, I'm going to go ahead and link the channel in the description below. I may release some music from time to time here. Who knows? Whatever God wills, right? But at the end of the day, I don't mind living a simple life, a quiet life. I hope to be the best husband and father I can be for the sake of my kids, my wife, and ultimately for God. And so, thank you for following along on this channel. I'm sorry for the radio silence, but I've been working hard. And so, I hope you're doing well. I'll see you on the other side.